If I were to incorporate an OBM procedure in a novel way, I would probably do it in a church setting to increase volunteer attendance and commitment for serving in the church area that they're serving in. So specifically, I serve in my special needs ministry at my church. Every Sunday, we're assigned every other Sunday for attendance via the planning app, and then we should either RSVP or decline. And then we also have a group meet to try to find coverage if needed. And a big challenge is consistent volunteers, just because the ministry is growing and you don't get compensated for volunteering. You're supposed to do it out of the kindness of your heart and for God. So creating an OBM initiative to help increase volunteer commitment and attendance expectations. So the dependent variables will be RSVPing on the planning center, either RSVPing or declining on the planning center as appropriate, at least 48 hours before your shift, and then successfully getting a replacement, so a substitute if you're unable to attend. So this will be a multiple baseline across, I would say volunteer groups, so we'll have A, B, and C just because there's multiple volunteers in the ministry. So I think kind of grouping them would be best, and it'll be a multiple baseline across groups. And then antecedent procedures will be the GroupMe reminders. So reminders are sent via GroupMe weekly at the beginning of the week, and then in the middle of the week to remind people to either accept or decline on Planning Center and try to find coverage. And then the Planning Center notification comes in the Tuesday before the Sunday that you're serving to remind you that you should RSVP or find coverage. And then also, we only get it that one time, but for the sake of the study, I'll also add a reminder the day before as an antecedent procedure. The independent variable will be the percentage of people either declining or accepting the Planning Center invite. So we just want that involvement, whether it's a decline or accept. And then the amount of volunteers compared to this amount of scheduled volunteers. So that will be indicative of the coverage that was provided. So if there's 5 volunteers scheduled and 2 decline, but then 2 decline, but they found people to cover them, so there was 5 total regardless, then this will be 100% accuracy, and this is what we want. So it doesn't matter if it's the exact person, but they should be successfully finding replacements. The consequence strategy will be, it's a little tough because the reinforcer should just be doing things for God, but if we want to use OBM, maybe like a point system for earning like church merchandise. So we have a pretty big church that has like a cafe, and sometimes when we do, we help out or go above and beyond, like our pastor will give us like little like $5 vouchers for the cafe. So maybe a voucher system for the cafe will be the consequence procedure. So during baseline, we're not getting those vouchers, and then during intervention, you'll get a voucher for your attendance and going through Planning Center. Now, it would have to be a lower value, so maybe like a 50-cent voucher, every Sunday that you successfully find a replacement and or attend, and also go in and deny or approve on a Planning Center. So it's reasonable for the church. So like after, a month you have $2, right? Or, you keep going up like that. So that can be a reinforcement system. So TI will do an IOA check. So of course we want to do we want 90% accurate agreement for the IOA. So that'll be my IOA check. And then the social validity, I would do like a social validity survey specifically for the volunteers about the positive reinforcement systems. So right now it's pretty hard to find a positive reinforcement to implement in the church setting, again, because you're supposed to just do it for God. So trying to see if that was helpful, or if they would like a different reinforcement system, or if 50 cents is sufficient enough, or if they would like a higher reinforcement system. And then the procedural integrity, I would do also a checklist. So the components of it are accepting or declining on planning center. If you decline, did you get a replacement? And then also counting how many the amount of volunteers who arrived versus who were scheduled ratio. So I would have a checklist each week to calculate that. And then of course we'll have the IOA to make sure that it's being implemented properly with an IOA score of 90% of agreement or higher.